Just another day in Grande-Synthe. A recently arrived family is setting up base in the wood. They're putting up a tent supposed to shelter them from the cold, wind, rain and mud over the next few weeks. Meanwhile, other people attempt to clean the mud off their clothes, wash dishes in the pouring rain, or try to keep warm in makeshift shelters.
This is my tent and this is our life. As you can see, there's a lot of garbage here and the rats playing around our tent and go inside and mess with our food. Here the people take shit and peeing around because there are no toilets. They're all, full of garbage, bad condition. We cannot use the toilets.
Even getting around can be challenging enough. The ground is mired in mud, as are people's clothes. There aren't enough latrines or showers. Piles of rubbish attract rats. And as the temperature drops close to zero, the police stop volunteers from delivering winterized shelters.
Right now you see what's happening here. This is not rain, this is ice drops. We have ice drops, we have water like this, deep to your knee. And we have no tents allowed, but some people were able to get some tents for the people to maybe have a dry place. We have not enough food. Only private people are here and 2 organizations are allowed to do something for the people, to give them food, to give them a warm place and whatever. It is a disaster.
There are families and 250 children in Grande-Synthe. While conditions here are extremely grueling for adults, they're actually dangerous for the kids. Médicos Sem Fronteiras and Médecins du Monde are on hand to provide medical care to the migrants.
Most of our patients have infections brought on by the cold. We try to treat them and give them the best care we can, but given that there's no improvement in their living conditions, their coughs persist. The people here are sick and suffering from exhaustion.
La toux persiste, les gens sont malades, sont fatigués.
Added to this are dental problems, treatment for chronic diseases and injuries sustained by the migrants on their way here.
We're doing what we can, but we'll never manage to provide these people with some degree of humanity and dignity as long as the government fails to support the migrants.
On the 11th of January, MSF finally got the go-ahead to start work on a new site. A month from now, 2,500 people will be provided with decent accommodation.
This is the gate of hospital.
The toll of the successive attacks on MSF facilities is worsening. While there were no casualties in Hayden, 9 people, 2 of them MSF staff, were wounded in Thais. Then in Razé, 6 people were killed and at least 7 others wounded. There has been a drastic reduction in the provision of healthcare for the population, particularly in the north of the country, where many health centres have been either destroyed or totally abandoned.
We are calling for medical facilities, our hospitals, our clinics to be respected and afforded the neutrality they have the right to. They most certainly shouldn't be military targets. What happened here in Hayden and Razé yesterday is happening throughout the country. Hospitals are being targeted and destroyed, health workers and patients killed or wounded. It's quite unacceptable. We simply can't guarantee that one of our hospitals won't be bombed the next day, and every morning our staff has to go to work with that on their minds. So we really need to establish a clear-cut modus operandi with the military forces here.
These ruins are all that's left of the hospital in Hayden, which 200,000 people relied on. The seriously injured are now forced to travel several hours by road to get to the nearest hospital. Their chances of survival are almost zero. Jeannette's mother brought her to the hospital in Rutshuru 2 weeks ago. Barely 1 year old, the baby girl is severely malnourished. The malnutrition has caused swelling, but worse still, has resulted in a generalised infection. Intensive care nursing supervisor Bernard has had to admit her to his unit.
I think Jeannette got malnutrition because she was weaned too young and too fast. She's barely 1 and she's already got a little brother. She wasn't able to benefit long enough from breast milk, so very quickly, at a very young age, she became severely malnourished.
Patients with malnutrition are only a very small proportion of cases treated by Bernard and his team. Early weaning can be the cause, but so can the lack of health facilities in remote areas, as families have to travel long distances to get to a hospital. Malaria, widespread sexual violence, cholera. 10 years of working in North Kivu, and MSF's teams are still witness to the enormous needs of the region's inhabitants. In March 2014, the first cases of Ebola were reported in Guinea. Within a few months, several countries and thousands of people were affected. Ebola has been known for close to 40 years, but when the epidemic broke out, there was no treatment and no vaccine due to a glaring lack of research into hemorrhagic fevers only affecting the developing world. Treatment was thus very limited and could not prevent the deaths of around 40% of those who contracted the disease. It wasn't until January 2015 that clinical trials on a range of potential treatments and vaccines were finally launched. Some of these trials could not be completed, while others were initiated too late to include enough patients. Regarding treatment, antibody-based ZMapp and antiviral favipiravir were the two drugs that stood out, but further research is needed to better document their efficacy. Only one vaccine was tested on a sufficient number of people in Guinea and produced excellent results. None of the people vaccinated immediately after being in contact with an Ebola patient had developed the disease 10 days later. This is the most promising news yet. It's the worst Ebola epidemic in history, with over 28,600 reported cases and 11,300 deaths. But if there's another outbreak, the only way to administer one of the potential treatments to patients would be through further clinical trials. Although no treatments or vaccines have been approved yet, responding to the epidemic has at least enabled health professionals to gain valuable experience. And there's still a lot of data to be analysed to advance knowledge of the disease and improve the response to future outbreaks. Take survivors of the disease. Médicos Sem Fronteiras is treating 350 of the 1,000 or so survivors living in Montserrado County, where Liberia's capital is. The most common longer-term effects of the disease are painful joints and ophthalmic disorders, as well as post-traumatic stress and depression. The few patients who have relapsed or contracted the infection from survivors of the disease have shown that the Ebola virus subsists in the body longer than it was previously supposed. For how long? Only consistent monitoring and long-term research will tell. Added to the challenge of ensuring post-epidemic surveillance, the healthcare systems of the three countries need to be re-established. Less than robust in normal times, they're now in a state of total collapse. In Liberia, 189 health workers died of Ebola. That's 1 in every 10. Numerous health facilities were forced to close, and many have still not reopened. And it's not just numbers of beds or personnel that pose a problem for healthcare systems. In the event of another outbreak, every clinic, every health centre, every hospital could once again be a source of infection if vital infection control measures are not properly implemented.
Les hôpitaux que j'ai pu voir aujourd'hui ne fonctionnent plus, le système de santé est catastrophique. 80% des étrangers qui faisaient fonctionner ces hôpitaux ont quitté le pays pour des raisons de sécurité et économiques. L'approvisionnement en médicaments est aujourd'hui aussi très difficile, des ruptures sur tous les hôpitaux où MSF travaille et gros problème de ressources humaines. À côté de ça, il n'y a aucune ONG. MSF est la seule ONG internationale présente avec une présence expatriée sur place. Le côté Est, où MSF est principalement depuis le début de l'ouverture, il y a une chaîne de commandement, il y a une armée officielle reconnue internationalement et il n'y a pas des milices à chaque coin de rue. Donc je pense qu'il y a un vrai espace de travail. C'est probablement pas plus dangereux que Kaboul aujourd'hui où il y a des centaines d'ONG. Donc je pense qu'il faut s'investir et répondre aux besoins actuels qui sont quand même très importants.